Hello, welcome back. Nigel with your Nigel's Modelling Bench, and now we've got part 2 of the build of this beautiful Pocher Lamborghini Aventador in 1/8 scale. So the plan was, okay, we've done all this. This is actually the afternoon of the finishing of the video 1. So the plan was to sort of get some paintwork done and everything. But in the meantime, what I was going to do was get these parts here from Sprue I. So we've got I04 and I02 off of Sprue I. Get them cleaned up, get them fitted, and get them painted, sorry, not fitted. So we're ready. So when we've done this, we can just turn the page, put all this together, and that's our front sub-assembly done up to this stage, and then we start adding suspension parts. But lo and behold, barriers have appeared, and I want to show you what's going on. Well, not so much barriers, just things to be aware of. So here, on the back of this crash bar, this is the crash bar that's going to screw onto the front here. It's going to fit in those holes, and we've got screws going there. Remember, we tap those threads. So that's going to go on like that. So we want that to be gloss black as well. You don't have to, I'm just doing it that way. Ejector pin marks in the back. Yes, over being fussy, but they're there. It's flat. It's easy to just fill them up with some super glue and then sand them back, so we can get our sanding stick and just literally run the sanding stick over there and just sand those back until they're nice and smooth, just like so. Okay, you don't need to see me do that. I just keep sanding it until it's absolutely smooth. I've got something I haven't shown you for the newbies out there. For cleaning your sanding sticks, when you get an old pair of jeans, cut the bottoms off them or something, and denim is fantastic for cleaning out sanding sticks, and then you're back to having a new one again. Okay, so that's really good. Now I'm going to go to the zebra stick because it's harder and it'll give me more of a flat finish. But as you can see, we can sand away until we have no more. You can see we have shiny plastic around that mark there. So I'm just going to keep sanding until that shiny plastic disappears. And I've done the glue test, and the Sprue I works with extra thin as well. So you can see we just got that bit of shiny plastic there, sort of as we're looking out there at 1 o'clock. And keep going until that's gone. Get rid of that dust. There we go. Got the dust out of there. So you can see we've now got that ejector pin mark basically filled in. And when we prime it, it'll cover all that up. Right. So that was the first thing. Got the other one to sand down as well, but I'm not going to make you watch that. The second thing is this anti-roll bar here. This is why it's always worth checking parts before you go to paint. There's two, you can see there's a cutout there where my finger is, there's a cutout there, and there's little lugs on here that are going to fit in that cutout, so it's going to go on like that. And I've noticed that when it's there, it all rocks about. And if you look on the side, you can see here that basically what's happening, that lug is bottoming out before the actual flange is contacting the subframe. So what I'm going to do is sand away some of this lug. I've got 400 grit zebra stick I'm using here. I'm just going to sand away some of that lug until it fits nice and flat. Now this is going to have to be super glued. But what I'm trying to do is get rid of that gap. Where's the other side? There we go. What I'm trying to do is get rid of that gap. You can see there's daylight through there. And what I want it to do is sit down nice and flush. So I think it may actually be that bit of lug there as well that's causing an issue. So just sand that away as well. In fact, it might be easier to come in with a knife and just slice that away. See how that looks now. As you can see, we've still got an issue. It's still sitting up in the air. You've still got a gap there. So I'm going to carry on, do some fettling and get it to fit nicely, and then I'll come back and show you what I've done. Okay, so I don't know if you can see what I've done here. I've sanded on an angle. Basically what's happening here is these faces on the subframe, you can probably see it, they're angled up. It's draft for the mould. So they're angled up and this is made square. So basically what we need to do is file the length off of that leg and also file an angle on it so it's not square like this, it's kind of exaggerated, it's angled. And then also I've removed some material from the inside faces of the mounting blocks, because to put an angle on them as well, and then it goes in and it will sit in those little grooves and it'll sit lovely and flat and it'll sit nice and straight. Had I realised this, I would have glued this on before I painted the subframe. But I think we've got some blocks or something here which would be a different colour, so that may be okay. But I always try and, with gluing stuff together, I try and glue assemblies together before we paint. But I'll have to look out for that in the future. But you have got to be a bit careful with this model. Whoopsie daisy. You've got to be very careful with this model because, as you can see here, the instructions are just exploded diagrams and it doesn't say which bit to do first. Now I know for a fact, I can look at this now, if I fit that transmission, if I fit this, oops, up under there, sorry, like so, yeah, I won't be able to get at the screw to attach the shock absorber. So I know the shock absorbers have got to go on first. So that's just one thing. So that's what we're going to have to be careful of with this build all the way through. The other thing I've been looking at is we're going to have struggle working this out here, because this part here doesn't look at all like the part that's on the sprue, but I'm sure we'll work it out. It's just the way it's drawn. So so there we go. So that's all, the seam lines have gone off of there as I showed you before, and the ejector pin marks are gone from there. Softened off all the edges just to get rid of all the hard edges and everything. So they're gonna get painted now, and then we'll come back in a day or two, not that long for you, and we'll get some detail painting done on this little lot. But I want that clear coat to be rock hard before we do any of that. And there we go, painted gloss black. No clear coat on that, just gloss black. You've got a decent shine on there. And then this crash bar, I had to give a coat of clear because I couldn't seem to get the finish with the black. It's so warm, the paint was drying so fast, it's hard to keep a wet edge. And when you get with gloss paint, when you get the dry, you end up with like a misty coat where it just dries on the surface. So quick wipe over the clear coat afterwards, and you can see we've got a nice sheen on there now, so that's all good. Right, so these shock absorbers, as some of you will know who know Öhlins, they have a anodized orange surface, and on these particular shock absorbers, if I think of it, I'll put a picture up now. There's just an area in the centre, and this is where the decal's going to go, or the decal's going to go, around there with the Öhlins. So we want to recreate that sort of anodized orange finish. Now, if you don't have an airbrush, you could possibly try this with very, very thin paint. Thin the paint down a lot and give it a go. But I have an airbrush, so I'm going to use it. Now, starting off here, I've got this masked off, so we've got the silver paint here. We've got 10mm masking tape. These ridges that are raised on the outside edge, they remain silver. It's just the bit in the middle that's going to be gold. I'm just looking there, maybe that could come down a bit, we shall see. So I've got LP-48, which is sparkling silver. Now, if you don't have an airbrush, I wouldn't try and brush this stuff, just use ordinary silver, and then use the orange I'm going to use in a minute, and you can use that with the brush. So what I'm going to do here is I've got this in here, and it's not thinned, it's neat, so it's quite thick. So I'm just going to put this down, just very lightly, and as you can see, it's a very sort of bright silver paint. It's much brighter than the silver you can see here. It's called sparkling silver because it sparkles, funnily enough. Just get that down on there. As you can see, we don't need much, it just needs to be a light coat. And this is why I was so dedicated to getting rid of those seam lines, because you can imagine how bad they would have looked under here. So I'll get the airbrush cleaned out, and then I'm going to move on to the next step. Okay, so what I've got on the airbrush now is clear orange X26, and that's heavily thinned with Mr. Colour levelling thinners. Okay, about 90% thinners, 10% paint, so it's very, very thin. You can see down here how thin it is. It barely makes a colour. So what we can do now is slowly apply this. Just get that one out of the way so we don't get overspray on it. Just slowly apply this and let it build up until we get that anodized orange look. What I should have done was got the rear shocks and done it at the same time. But didn't think to do it, it's too late now. As you can see, we're getting that look, but also as you can see, the effect tends to sort of fade away. So it's worth just do it, let it dry a bit, wait a little while, and then come back to it. Let's put these in my cardboard stand. We can get some of this stuff out of the way now, actually. Some of the big bits. So I'm just going to do that again on there. You will see that as it goes down, it tends to sort of almost soak in and darken off. Okay. So go back to this one. You can see they were starting to get the effect now. It's like that anodized orange look that we're after. Just dry it back, just cut to air. Okay, so that's the effect. Now looking at that, to me it looks a little bit sort of grey. So what I'm going to do is brighten up. I'm going to spray a little bit of yellow over it, so you'll see the difference with that in a minute. And there we go, you can see with a light covering of the orange, the yellow, sorry, we've got that anodized look. Okay, so we'll just quickly rip the masking tape off before the paint dries out. It's always worth removing masking before the paint dries because you lessen the risk of it peeling, especially with gloss paints. If you let the paint dry, it kind of forms a skin with the masking tape, and then when you pull the masking tape off, it will peel the edge. So the biggest problem with this, guys, is the patience factor. It's the waiting, because you've done the silver, you've got to wait for it to dry. You've done the clear coat, you've got to wait for it to dry. Now we've done this, we've got to wait for it to dry before we can put a clear coat on it again. So yeah, it's best to seal it in, I think. We'll see how it dries. If it dries really glossy, then it'll be okay. But, sometimes it's best to get a nice clear coat down for the decals, especially if the decals are not of amazing quality. They're not cartograph or anything. I don't know what they're like, so best not play with fire. You can see, there we go, we've got our rough representation of our Olin shock absorbers. And when they've got the decals on, they'll look really lovely. So there we are. Okay, we'll let them dry and then I'll be back. Okay, so a couple of days have gone by since I last worked on this, so you can see that these shafts are all nice and dry now. So the shocks, sorry, not shafts. Let me see, they don't get scratched. So we've got decals to go on there. I've actually gone around and done some hand painting. I've painted the CV boots. I've gone in here with like a metallic grey. That needs a bit of a touch up by the look of it. You can see now the drive shafts are looking quite nice. And you know, it's a shame we're going to cover it all up, but it just adds to the fun of the build. And then we've got the prop shaft here, got the CV boots in there as well, look, and then the metallic grey around there. This is all brush painted using Tamiya XF85 mixed with the Modeler's World Leveling Thinner for brush painting. Makes Tamiya paint a lot easier to paint. If you haven't got that, I would recommend using Vallejo brush paint for brush painting, because it's awesome. And then we've got here, we have the anti-roll bar, and as you can see I've masked off, I've done the silver brackets, and again we've got the rubbers in there, are done in the rubber black. So that's all looking nice. That's going to sit on the subframe. And then we've got here the actual centre differential, the front differential, and then got the drive shaft there again, all painted up. So it's all coming together quite nicely. You can see I've got these parts off here. These are V1 and V2, I think, and they're going to go on here. These are battery cables. They're going to go under there, and then that's going to hook around there, and then this is, I don't know what it is. I'm going to have a look at seeing if we can clean the seams up. I'm not a great fan of these vinyl parts. Having said that, these feel quite hard. Men use a lot of these vinyl parts for hosing and stuff, and it's very soft. It's almost like really soft rubber, and you can't sand the seam off it because it just keeps folding over. You can actually put it in a freezer and freeze it. It sometimes makes life a lot easier. I'm just going to see if I can get that seam off, because to my eye that thing looks worse on a pipe than a seam. As I say, you might not want to bother with this because you're not going to see all of it. It's at the end of the day, it's all going to get covered up. But you may find a way of exposing it, who knows. But it's going to look nice while we're building it, isn't it? And I just really want to show you, adding my little touch, just what we can achieve with this model. Just, just by adding paint and stuff. You've no doubt seen builds on YouTube where people have gone on and used flocking and used carpet material and all sorts of stuff like that. I'm not doing any of that. I'm not really adding anything. I'm basically building it pretty much out of the box with a few little bits of plastic card here and there and a bit of paint. So there we are. So it looks like we can actually clean those seams up. I've got where's my magnifier gone? Here it is. I've got a 10:1 magnifier I use to look at seams. And what you look at with the naked eye, you sometimes see it's not there, and then as soon as you prime it, bang, there it is. So I'm not also sure what paint we can use on these. I'll give it a go and I'll let you know. We may find that the MRP primer sticks well to these, because I'm not sure what colour these pipes will be. I'll have to look at some reference photos, but as soon as I know, I will let you know. I wonder if a harder stick will work better on this. Yeah, it does. It seems to work better, a harder stick. So just be sure you don't put any flats on it. So there we go. Right. So we'll clean them up. I've also done a little modification to the battery area. I should have filmed this before I did it, and I can't find any filming that I've already done that shows it. But this area of the battery was actually hollow. This here was hollow. So basically it was like it was like a four-sided box. So you had the two sides, the top and the back, but the front of the battery was just open and the bottom was just open. So I've panelled it in with some plastic card and then painted over it. And also these down here were hollow as well, so I've just painted those in as well. I've got greasy fingers. I have psoriasis. You'll probably notice all the horrible marks and everything on my arms. And it's like a gel I have to put on, and it's awful because it gets everywhere. And so hence I've got oily finger marks on there, which I have to get rid of. It's a real pain for modelling, because obviously the one thing you don't want when you're modelling is oil on your hands. So yeah, it's on my elbows. Obviously I've got psoriasis, and if I touched my arms on the arm of the chair and then I touched the chair, so anyway, right. So there we go. So the next thing I want to do is get some decals decals on here. You can see I've gone over the top with some gloss paint. We'll see how that looks. I should have gone over the top with the clear coat actually, just to guarantee, but I'm sure they're going to go down okay. So we've got our water slide decals here. Now I don't know what these are like. Something I want to suggest to you, a lot of people, because we need these two here, we need 13 and 14, a lot of people would get a cutting mat and cut them out with a knife. Don't do it. The problem with doing that is I've said this in other videos, so if you've heard me say it before, I'm sorry. When you cut with a knife, it's very much like ploughing a field, and what happens is the knife goes through and it raises two edges. So you actually produce a lip on the edge of the paper, which makes it hard to slide the decal off. And especially if you're going close into the decal. Now this doesn't have any real carrier film on it, so it's going to be fine. But if you've got large areas of carrier film around the decal, like you can see on these white ones here, there's some carrier film around the edge. You might want to cut that off. If you use a knife, you will give the decal a very hard edge. It's better to use scissors, and it gives a softer edge. So what I'm going to do here is go in from here, because we're going to be using these on the instrument panel. Yeah, I'll go in from the top. So we'll cut along this line. It's nice the way they've got everything outlined. I've never seen that before on a decal sheet. I do like the way they've done that. So they're showing, because you've got lots of white decals on here, and quite often it's easy to make a mistake. So let's go down there, down that line there, and then we'll come across to this one here, and we'll come across like that and go across there. There we go. So I'm just going to cut that through there, and then we can come along here and cut down there. Okay. I mean, you could just cut the sheet up and have a load of separate little decals, but sometimes it's better to keep it all as one. Alright, so put that back in its bag, because the last thing you want to do with that is splash any water on it. That will ruin your day. So what we can do now is, I want to get rid of these little, it's obvious which is which. I'm going to get rid of these little numbers on here. They will come off in the water and float around, and they might get stuck under your decal or on top of it or whatever. It's best to cut them off. Okay, and also these black lines around the outside, get rid of them, because they will come off the decal sheet as well. Okay, and they tend to not have any carrier film on them, so they just come up, they come off and they float around as just rubbishy little bits. So I've got an upturned Pringles lid here. I'm hoping it's going to be watertight. I'm just going to put a drop of water in there. Don't need much. You don't need a great big bowl. And then with the tweezers, the first thing I want to do is check the fit, because I know from Moss's build he had some issues with the sizes of the decals. So I just want to check that looks okay. What I'm going to do is just cut off this corner so it's easier to see the width. Yeah, that's fine. So this one could go in the water. We just go in the water like that, sit there, and then we'll put it over here and let it just sit there and soak up the atmosphere. And then that one should be good as well. Just have a look lengthwise, yes, and widthwise, yeah, it's going to be fine. So we'll put that one in the water as well. So they don't need to be completely submerged. Okay, and they're ready to go already. They're really good. Okay, now I'm going to try some micro set and sol. This is decal setting solution. If you're in the UK, these are the two most commonly available, micro set and sol. And I think this is the best place to try them, because if it doesn't work and they wrinkle up or whatever, then I can always just sort of cover them up with something or other, because they're going to be way down in the depths. And as I say, you're not really going to see them. I'd rather find out here that set and sol doesn't work than find out when I'm doing something like the instrument panel, which is you're not going to be able to hide. So I need to get my brush, and I'm going to put a drop of, get a drop of micro set, put on there. In fact, I'm going to take this off of there and put it down on the bench. Okay, so we just got a drop of micro set there, that'll form a little puddle. And then we've got this one here, which is our positive. Whoopsie daisy, you do not want to be doing that. Okay, so now what we can do is just wet the end of your finger, because sometimes your finger can be sticky and the decal will stick to it. Just run that across like that. If you don't do that with your finger, sometimes you take your finger away and the decal goes and it all wrinkles up around your finger and you've had it. Okay, so now we can just use the tweezers just to position this so we can see the edges, just like that. And then we can take a cotton bud and just gently roll out any excess moisture from underneath, just rolling the cotton bud across. We've got a bubble there, we're going to get rid of that. I think there was a couple of tiny bits of dust in the paint, but I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, so that one has gone down very, very nice actually. They feel a little thick, that's a good thing. It's better to be a bit thick than a bit thin. Especially with stuff like this. If it's an aircraft model and you put roundels on the wings or stars and bars or whatever, then you don't want them too thick. But here, for stuff like this, I'd rather they were a bit thick than a bit thin, because if they're a bit thin, they can just all wrinkle up on you. And that's gone down really, really nice. Okay, so you can see there we've got our Varta AGM, which is gel matte, active gel matte I think it's called, isn't it, or acid gel matte. And then we're going to get some micro set, which is the blue one. Again, put a drop on there. We just need a drop and it will capillary under the decal when we slide it on. Okay, just shake off the excess water. And then this one is going to slide onto there, just like so. And then we could use the tweezers to position it. I wouldn't recommend going with your finger and sliding it around, because sometimes it sticks to your finger, as I say. And if you're using this, I mean, these are quite thick, they probably won't do it, but if you're using thinner decals, they will have a tendency to stick to your finger, and it can ruin your day. We just gently roll out the moisture. And now you can see I've gone to the fuss of making this battery solid, because don't worry about the paintwork. Is once the decals are on, it's going to get a clear coat of satin. But I wanted to get the decals on first, and then we can clear the decals, seal the decals in with the clear coat. Okay, and they've gone down really nicely. Okay, there we go. So you can see now I've rolled them out, rolled all the bubbles out. You can see they're on now. And what this is, basically, this is a battery, and they've got a cover here. So the positive terminal is under there. This is the negative terminal. We'll have a cable coming off of that. And then there's cables that come out the bottom here, and this is like protected. If you've got a Volkswagen Passat, it's got the same sort of thing on the front of the fuse box, so, or a Volkswagen Golf. So I'm going to try and paint those vinyl cables red, because the cables that come out of here are red. And obviously, as I said before, I don't know if it was in this video or from the previous video, with these cars, everything tends to be black and silver, so the opportunity to get a bit of colour in there, go for it, you know. So now, I'm going to use the same brush, which would drive some people absolutely crazy, and I'm just going to put on, excuse me, just going to brush on some micro set. So what the micro set does, the micro set improves the adhesion, and it allows the decal to pull down tighter onto the surface. What the micro sole does, it softens the decal and it makes it pull down even harder. So if I was putting this down over a grill or something, or there was a shape in there, you know, or like an instrument panel decal, then the micro sole will allow it to pull down over the ridges. Okay, make sure you get all the edges, because it's the edges you want to pull down. You don't want any carrier film sticking out. So you can see there what I've done. Got the micro sole all painted all over. Alright, so there we are. Right, I'll let that dry, and then I'll probably come back tomorrow and I'll give it a clear coat, and then we could look at getting these bits over here painted. As I say, I can't find any reference pictures to show what colour they should be, so I think we'll have to use a bit of our artistic license, yeah? But I know you don't mind, guys. Let me know in the comments below if you're enjoying this. As I say, it's a bit slow to start, because I'm sort of doing it as you, for beginners or less experienced modelers that just want to build this car. I mean, there's probably plenty of very rich people out there that have got themselves a Lamborghini Aventador, and they just want to build this, and they can follow me along, and if they don't understand the instructions or whatever, then I can show them how to do it. That's the general idea anyway. So and then maybe they can come around and give me a ride in their car. That would be nice. Right, I will see you all in a minute. And next day now, here we are back again with all our nice shiny parts. As you can see, we put those decals on the battery, as you know, and now I've gone over the battery with a semi-gloss coat. I masked off all the gloss, and then to my massive disappointment, when I pulled the masking tape off, the masking tape had affected the clear coat underneath, even though it had been down for like 24, 36 hours. So yeah, great. So I had to go over this again with gloss black. I took the opportunity to and then sand the underneath again, get rid of the witnesses that were there, those panels that were in. Absolutely pointless, totally utter waste of time, because it's never going to be seen. But hey, it's the fun of building it, isn't it, rather than just the you can see we've still got a witness on there of where the masking tape affected it. You can see it on that panel there. But that's going to be covered up by two cylinders over here, these two. So you've got that big one there is going to be going in there. So it's going to be sort of hidden away anyway. And like I say, you're not going to see any of it. But I may give it another quick clear coat, we shall see. But I've just gone over that with the LP one again with the gloss black. But as you can see, the semi-gloss clear LP-24 over the battery kind of just seals those decals and it makes it all look like one. So there we are. Right. And I repeat again, as I'm going to keep repeating all the way through this build, the stuff I'm doing here, you don't need to. You can just build it out of the box. But it's just, you know, it's a bit of fun, isn't it? So I now need to stop and let that dry. And then we need to do the clear coat and let that dry. If we do a clear coat, it's just spending it forever waiting for things to dry. Oh, I've put the Öhlins decals on the shock absorbers, as you can see there. Okay, I'm not going to bother sealing them in because in real life they are actually stickers, so I'm not going to seal them in because they look real. One of them, I don't know which one it was now, one of them was absolutely fine. One of them broke up into about 5 parts. I couldn't believe it. Went to slide it off the paper and it just shattered. I don't know what happened there. I can only think it's had a, because I think these were in the bag with the screws and everything, I can only think it's had a screw pressed hard against it and it's sort of made marks in the face. But yeah, one went down, just went down beautifully, rolled it out. The next one went to move it off the paper and it's just loads of different parts. It just shattered. So that took a bit of manipulation. If you do have that problem with yours, perhaps use one of the spares. You haven't got a spare, but you've got 2 for the rears. And I think on the rears they go on silver, so it won't be as noticeable. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But again, as I say, I've said a million times, none of this will be visible on the finished model. So there we go. Right, back in a minute. All right, a couple of days have gone by, another couple of days, and as you can see, we're all sort of set and ready to go now. This gloss paint on here is all cured. I've gone around and done some detail painting. I've painted the terminal on the battery, painted this bracket over here. I've been looking at reference material, and this here is all sort of fictitious. It's simplified for ease of moulding. This is actually in the centre. There's like a big aluminium block, and now that side of it there's 2 motors, and this, it should be it looks like a starter motor almost with a clamp around it. I can understand why they've simplified it for moulding and not having to make separate parts. And as I've said before, you know, you can't see this on the finished model anyway. So I'm just doing it because it looks nice while we're building it. But yeah, you can see painted all that in a semi-gloss black, done the strap in a silver. There we go. So that's that. I've also got these vinyl parts off. Now, because I'm doing this over many days, I can't remember what I've previously said, but sanding the seams off on these vinyl parts can be very difficult. But what I found, this is a particularly hard vinyl. I found this 400 grit Infinistix is really, really good. You just rub it along and it does a fantastic job of removing the mould seams because they do look awful. Now, obviously down in here in the depths of the front end, it's not so important. When we get to plumbing on the engine and stuff, we really want it to look nice. Now these here are a nightmare because you've got these in the indentations. I think this is supposed to be showing some sort of spy wrap you put around cables, but we shall see. I'm going to do an experiment with painting this. I believe MRP paint works very well with vinyl. Any other paint, I think like any other paint you use, as soon as you bend it, it's just going to crack. But I do want to give this a matte black finish, and I want to be able to paint these cables red and stuff on here. So we'll see how that goes. But for the meantime, we're going to get on and actually do some assembly. Yes, I know. I know these videos are a bit slow, guys, but as we get going, you know, like, I'm not going to show you how to do decals again. I'm not going to show you how to cut parts off sprues again. I'm not going to go through tools again, unless it's a new tool that I'm using. So here we go. We got the instructions, and we can see here that we have these parts here. So we have T09. Okay, so we get that off of there. And we have T09. We get that off of there. Right, so we've got those two parts there. We've got this central piece, which is K01009. Okay, so we get that off of there. I'm going to get these parts out of the way. And then what it's telling us to do is use 2 E-screws. So we've got our little box here. And we're going to get 2 E-screws out. There we go, we got those out. Okay, have a quick look at them, make sure they're okay. Remember, I found that dodgy one before. So I'm going to fit these so that the Olin's badge faces up, and this is going to be, you see, one side is plain, one side is plain, and one side is stepped. So I'm going to fit these on here like so. So the Olin's badge is facing up. I looked afterwards, I noticed the Olin's badge should really have been facing forward. Now you may be thinking about the paint. Obviously the paint's got in on the threads. Don't worry about it, don't tap it out, leave it in there. It kind of acts as like a bit of a thread lock, if you like. Now this is going to go in here, and what they're telling us to do is tighten it down and then come back half a turn, which is that much. Now if I do that, you can see we've got all this play in it. So what I'd rather do is tighten up and then come back about 1/8 of a turn. Okay, so you've still got the play. Alright, we'll do the same on this one. Let's pick our screw up first, actually. Put these parts together. If you are painting and lacquering like me, then you need to make sure you leave plenty of drying time, because you know everything takes quite a while to dry, especially in the winter when it's cold. Okay, so just all I'm doing is just doing the screw just till it stops, and then come back about 1/8 of a turn. As you can see, we've still got the play. I've got too much play in that one. As you can see, it's still flexible. Now the other thing I'm going to do, I am going to nip them up. Okay, just like that. Because I don't want them flopping about and getting scratched and everything. So there we go, so that's there. Now what it's asking us to do is build the shock absorbers up. So we've got these brackets here, okay, which are going to screw onto these parts here. So we've got 1, 2. Okay, so they can go in there. Now you will notice 2 things here. One, I've painted that area where the spring goes in white. And also we've got a bump stop on here. If you look at the photographs of the real thing, it's got red rubber bump stops. So what I did, I went online, went on eBay, and I found this company called Seals R Us, and they do 3 by 1.5, so that's 3mm bore by 1.5 section silicone seals. Okay, so these will fit beautifully on the shock absorber. Alright, that'll go on there like that. And there we go. And look how much better that looks. I'm absolutely mental, guys. None of this is going to be seen. It's only going to be while we're building the model. So we have these brackets here. We need to make sure we get these the right way round. So K0104 is the bracket, and you can see it has a small hole, and that small hole is going to be facing down and to the left and down and to the right. So this bracket is going to go onto here, and it's going to go onto the back. So we have a back and a front. Okay, so this is the front, that's the back. You can see it's got a cutout in it, it's not even. So that's going to go like that. Now we're going to get our screws. We've already tapped the threads in these parts. So we're going to get our screws B. We need to be careful. If you remember my experience before, if you start to put the screw in and you've tapped the thread and it feels tight, take it out and have a look. Try another screw, because if the screw goes in easy, that means your thread's okay. It's the screw that's dodgy. I'm hoping that's a one-off. So we've got that going on there like that. Okay, and then what I'm doing is holding this bracket here. I'm going to put that on there, and then I'm going to turn the screwdriver so it turns the screw in like that. Okay, now that is actually quite loose. Alright, now again I'm going to nip that up because I don't want it all flopping around, because if it's all flopping around it's going to damage and get scratched. Okay, so that's gone in there like that. So we can do the same thing again on this one. Take our screw onto our screwdriver. Okay, and if you didn't like the way I did it last time, then what we'll do is we'll hold that like that. We'll grab that like that. We're going to have that bracket that way round, so the screw is going through that top hole there. So we hold on to that. It's very difficult to hold. Okay, now that one felt quite tight, not as tight as that one with the damaged thread. So those are on now. They're both fitted so that, hang on, have I got that on them? And yeah, that one's correct and that one's correct. Yeah, that's both. That's good. Right. So they're ready to go, and then they're telling us to fit the springs. So we have SP-01 springs. These here, these are the longer ones. So they're going to go over there, and then that is going to go into there like so. And as you can see the little bump stop in there, and you can see the O-lins bit and all that, and it's all looking hunky-dory. Now there's nothing to hold any of this together, so I would suggest just leave it all apart, put it to one side, put the springs back in their box, and then when you're ready to fit it to the chassis, to the subframe, then we can do it then. So all of this can just go over here and be left as a sub-assembly. So then, moving forward, step 17, we've got, get rid of that shaft. So we've got our main transmission. You can see I've gone around with some silver colours and changed some bits and pieces. I've done the plugs. It's a bit, I've lost it, haven't I? So we've already done the assembly of those parts. What I do need to do is get a pencil and just cross through these parts because we've used them. Okay, we haven't used those springs yet, have we? So we've got the actual main differential with its drive shaft on it. We've got the other drive shaft here. Okay, and then that is going to go into here. We can see we've got a T-shaped slot in there. We've got a T-shape on there, so that's going to go in there, and that's a snug fit. That just pushes in, and then we're going to lock that in place with a K screw. So we have here a K screw, so you can see the difference. This is a, rather than a machine screw, this is a self-tapper. We talked about that before. So that's just going to plonk in there like that. I'm not going to do it on the bench because I don't want to scratch all the paint up. So that's going to pop in there, nice snug fit. And just go until it stops, don't go trying to strip anything. So you can see now we've got our differential built up. And it's all looking lovely. You can see what the difference a bit of paint makes, doesn't it? Doesn't that look so much better? Got my greasy finger marks all over these nice shafts. I think I mentioned before I've got psoriasis, and the cream they give me is a moisturiser and just gets everywhere. It's a pain. So that's that done. Okay, so we can cross those off. They're built. Then we've got this rear diff cover. Just going to go on here. Now when I saw Moss build his, he had a problem with this. So let's see what the problem is. Right, so that's going to go like that. And that diff cover is going to go like that. So you've got two pins, two holes. As you can see, it's extremely tight. Okay. But it's all going to line up okay. So what we'll do, we'll grab our caliper. I would thoroughly recommend getting some of these guys. You can get cheap ones. 1.65. So we're going to grab a 1.6mm drill. It should be good enough. Let's just see how much. Well, that's strange because they're absolutely fine. That one doesn't look deep enough. If I put that in there. Okay, probably is. Right, okay, so a 1.6mm drill. Let's see if that was enough. No. Okay, so I've got my 1.7mm drill, which actually measures about 1.68, but they generally drill oversize anyway. Now I've noticed that this hole here, you can see that hole there is in a shallow bit of the plastic part, so I want to make sure I don't go through. So what I'm going to do is just nip the drill up in the chuck, push the chuck in, just check that again. I want to make sure that I don't go through, so I'm just going to drill that hole as deep as the chuck will let me. Okay, we'll see how that goes. Still very tight. Okay, so I've got a 1.75mm drill here. This is getting ridiculous. How long can you possibly spend on one part? Okay, so a little bit of fettling now. I drilled those holes out 1.75. As you can see, it goes on lovely. But I found it didn't quite go on deep enough. And what I discovered was that these areas in here, where the holes are, they're raised. So I literally came in with a knife and just sliced off, as you can see there, just sliced off the raised part to allow it to go on further. Now the other problem we got on the end here, the end is, as you can see, it's got a hell of a draft in it. So what we're going to do, we're going to put it on, but we're going to make sure that the bottom looks better than the top, okay? Because obviously the bottom's a lot nicer than the top. I don't think that's quite how they are in real life. That's more like it, but we still have a hole at the back there, so if you want to fill those in, you can. But there we are. So what we can do now is we can use some Tamiya extra thin, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the thicker one, the white one, and just put it in these holes, because we know that the T-sprue, the extra thin, works. So obviously it's styrene. Okay, so we're going to push these pins in, just like so, pull them out again, just to make sure we don't get a hydraulic lock and it all just spatters out when you push it in. And there you go, that can sit on there, and that is fine. I'm happy with that because it's all painted. What I should have done, in hindsight, what I should have done is fitted this before I painted it, and then I could have dealt with the fit and everything. But, there we go. So if I did one again, which I won't, because I don't think they're going to send me another one. I hope they send me a 917, I must say. Did you see that Porsche 917 I reviewed the other day? It looks gorgeous. I'd love to get my hands on that and give it the Nigel treatment. Anyway, so there we are. So there's our differential, the front cover, the rear cover on there now. And then we've got to fit this prop shaft, which is the front prop shaft, which is going to go back under the floor to the gearbox. So we've got the prop shaft there, so you've got this D-shaped pin on here. You have a D-shaped slot in there, and you don't need to glue it. It stays there on its own. Also, the reason I don't want to glue it is while we're storing this front subframe to carry on with the rest of the build, that is going to be sat like that. So you can see this is sticking right at the back, so it'd be handy to be able to remove that just for storage. Put it in a box or something, keep it dust free. Okay, so that is step 17 completed. Okay, so we can put across through there, we can put across through there and across through there, so we know we've done all that. Now then, 18, right, this is going to be, I'm sorry if this video goes on, but I want to, part 2 is going to be finishing up here. That's going to be it then, and then we're going to go on to this, well maybe we'll do this as well. If it goes over the hour, it goes over the hour. I'm sorry if you fast forward or turn it off or whatever you want to do. Right, this is very involved. The reason I say it's very involved, there's a lot of mistakes in this drawing. These parts that are drawn here do not represent the parts we've actually got. If you look on here, they're showing you this part is having these legs sticking back, okay, and having this cutout. So the battery, the front face, this is showing the back of this cross member, and this in the middle is the battery. So the front face is solid and the back face is hollow. In reality, Okay, the back face is solid, the front face is hollow. If you remember, I filled it in. You can see a mark there. See a mark there where I filled it in, where the glue sunk back after it's painted. I've also filled in the bottom as well, but just because I'm like that, I like wasting time, you know. So the drawings are wrong. Now the other thing I noticed, we got this part here, V03. Let's take this stalk out of here. Now V03 is this one here, and as you can see, if you look here, you can see it's drawn as having, it's like an S shape, but it's not an S shape, it's an L shape. Now either they've drawn it wrong on the instructions, or that's the wrong part, but it's not the wrong part. So what we need to do is have it bent like that. Okay, so we can hold that like that for a while, and maybe it'll stay there. You could drill it through, maybe hold it under some hot water and see if it stays there. But basically that has got to go into there, bend round, and then you've got this cranked pin on here. You see that they're sticking out the side. That's got to go in there. Okay, so that's the earth cable. Sorry, got that wrong. Okay, it's not going in there. It's going in there. It's not the earth cable. That cable there is going in there, and that cable over there, that end's going in there. So it's going to sit something like that. So you can see it's just not right at all. Right, so that's that one. Then this one here, V04, this has got a, one end has like a, see this end has like a lump on it, and this lump doesn't. This is the earth cable, so that's going to glue into the battery there, and then come around and go into the floor down there. Now these holes here, there's 3 holes, 2 of them are for this part here, which is part R14. So I'm not sure which. Okay, so it's that hole there that's left clear. So basically this cable here is going to go into that hole. I can make it stay in there, and then that's going to wrap up and go into the battery there like that. Okay, so we're going to have to use super glue for these. Now this is where it starts to get really complicated. These two here, VO1 and VO2, are these two here. They don't look anything like the drawing. This one kind of does. So this one's going to go into those 2 holes there. Okay, and then it's going to come around, and they're showing that piece there dropping down, this piece here, and going into the side of here. Okay, so I've left that sprue gate on there. So remove that. Yeah, so that one's going into the side of here. I just can't see how that's going to fit in there. The hole is tiny in comparison. So maybe it just sits in like that. I don't know. It's very ambiguous. So that end's going to go up under there. So you can see now we've got this huge swathe of I don't know where it's all supposed to go. It's just sitting up with that. I guess when it goes in the cross member, it'll all be in the subframe. It'll all be self-explanatory. And then this one here. Now I can't work out what's what with this, because here they're showing it's got a cranked. They're showing this has got a cranked end, and that's going to go into there. So that end's going into there like that, and then this bit here is going to go in the side of there. Okay, but it has no pip on it, so we'll grab some tweezers and see if we can just push it in. It's quite a big hole. And then this at the back end here you see what I mean? This has now got a twist and go into the top of that main loom, and then this end here is going to go into a part that we're going to put down there. Now again, you see they're showing here, we have 2 holes, 3 holes. We've actually got 2 holes on a pin. So this part here is going to go over that pin. And then this part here is going to go in those 2 holes. So let's get that cable out of the way. Stay out of the way, cable. That's good. It's a very tight fit, which is a good thing. Okay, so that's going to go in there, and then that's going to go on there like that. So what they're saying here is this pipe is going to go into the top of there. So it's all going to have to be super glued and held in place. But the drawings in this stage here are all awful. They're all awful. They're the wrong way round. So that pipe's, we've got this bracket here going to go in there. And this is one of the problems with the instructions. This is where, if you're new to the hobby, where you're going to need some help. Just like Moss was saying, there's no actually direction in this assembly sequence. It's all just exploded diagrams. So there's nothing actually showing you where anything goes. So that's going to go in there. So now what I want to do is, with this one, I want to heat it up and put a kink on the end. It's just going to look so much neater. So I think what we'll do is glue the plastic parts in. There we go, that's gone in there. That's gone in there. Right, so what we can do here is just get a drop of extra thin into there, and a drop into there, and a drop into there, and a drop into there. And then don't touch it, and it shouldn't damage the paint too much, but that'll be enough just to lock them in place. Okay, I'm just going to give that one a nudge because it's just sitting up. It's actually just going to look better if it's just pushed down. There we go. Okay, so you can see the colours I've done here: gloss black, semi-gloss black, semi-gloss black, semi-gloss black, aluminium. That's like a plated steel bracket. And then that's going to go on there, and I'm not quite sure. I think I'll put a drop of super glue on there to hold that in. So that's all done. Now we've got to work out all this pipe work, and I'm going to go away and I'm going to see if I can put it under a hot tap and put a bend in it. Okay, so you can see that I've modified this one. I've got the kink on the end there. So when that goes on, it's going to be in there like that at a right angle, rather than, you can see that's in there at a right angle rather than just sort of floating around. You also see I've got this one here, this battery cable, which goes up under here. We've put a bend in there so that it goes up neatly under there, and then it's going to go neatly into there. So that's a lot tidier than having it just sticking out as a great big loop, you know. So the way I've done this, now this one here is going to go across the back like this. It's so awkward with these instructions, the way they are. And then this one's going into the battery, isn't it? This one's going into the battery here. Yeah, no. Where's this one going? Oh, this one's going into the top of the other cable, and then this end is going to go down into there. So I'm just going to sharpen up that end. So you can see I've got a cup here with boiling water. It's not boiling anymore. I'm just going to put that in there, just let it get warm, and then just hold it, go past where you want it to be, and then just hold it in your finger and let it cool, and it should stay in that position. You can see here I've done the battery cable as well. I want to tighten that up a bit. You'll see when I put it in the water, it happens in memory, it goes back to where it was. Watch this. See it straighten out? Now that it's soft, I can come along and just overbend it. If you have overbent it, just go back out. I wouldn't recommend actually putting these in boiling water. Boil the kettle, pour it out into a cup, sort of count to 10 so the water's like 98 degrees or something rather than 100. I did this once before on a model and it actually distorted the vinyl part. So as you can see, that battery cable now is going to come out of there, go round and into there, and that is a lot tidier. In fact, what I need to do is put a bit of a bend in it that way as well. So what I'm going to do is hold that in the water. You can see the end straighten out. So I can pull that around. Okay, just like so. That should sort of stay. This is the kind of things I want to do in these videos, the kind of stuff that other people don't do. And you know, show you a logical way of getting around an issue rather than just leaving it looking, you know, looking not as good. So there we are. That's going to go in like that. That's going in like that. You can see it's still, that end still wants to be straight. So we're going to put it back in the hot water again. It straightens itself out. Let's let the heat really get into it this time. And I'm going to bend that right over and hold it. And see if I can make it stay at right angles. This one went quite well. You see it's starting to go back out again, which is probably going to happen while the model's being built. But you know, at least we can say we tried, guys. We tried, didn't we? Maybe the thing to do is stick it in some cold water to shock it. Got some cold water here. So maybe if you put it in the hot water, flex it, hold it, stick it in the cold water. Oh yeah, that seems to be better. It seems to be more likely to stay in position, although it's not. So let's see how this battery cable's looking. Yeah, that's better. There we go. It just does not want to stay down. I really do want that to stay at right angles, and we need to put a bend in it there, don't we? So what we'll do is we'll just put that in the water like that with the bend already in it, and then dip it in the cold, and it stayed. So that's cool. So maybe now we'll form a proper looking droopy cable rather than, and it needs a turn in that end as well. Right, so how's that looking now? Okay, so that's going to go into there. And then that end is going to go into there. Go on in there, please. That's better, isn't it? It's still not perfect, but it's a lot better. Okay, so we're going to try once more at getting that end to go over at 90 degrees. Get over at 90 degrees. Hold it there in the cold water. It's kind of staying in shape, but I'm not sure how long it's going to stay there for. I mean, we could always just touch a super glue, just clip it, hold it in place. But as you can see with this one, you know, once I glue it in, I think it's going to pretty much stay where it is. Especially if we glue that there along its length. Right, so I'll come back in a second, get some gluing done, and go from there. Okay, welcome back. So I fitted those two, okay, and what I've done here, I've actually drilled that battery turbine 2mm, so I could get that pipe in there, and it holds it square, as you can see, rather than, because if you've just got the little pin on the end, say this is the pin in here, obviously it all can play around, whereas if you actually have the pipe going into a hole that's the same size as the pipe, it's sort of locked in. It can flex a little bit, but it can't pivot around the pin. I've done the same here, where we have this block on the back of this loom. This pipe here is going, I've heated this again and bent it round. That's going to go into there. So what I've done is drilled it out. This is 1.5mm. Drilled it out 1.5, cut the pip off the end, and then I can literally force that in there, and it stays there even without gluing it. So, I mean, I'm going to glue it because obviously I want it to stay in place. I've also drilled out here, okay, to make that stay where it is. And then I've done the same here, drilled that one out. So we can start off now with this one by, this end is going to go, I've left the pin on there because it's just a hollow block it's going into. So that can go into there. We'll grab the tweezers and we'll push that pipe into there. Okay, I'm not going to be able to paint these cables. I'm going to try and paint the red bit, but I don't think I'm going to be able to paint anything else. So I'm going to hold that very near the end and try and push that into its hole. There we go. You can see that's gone in there and it just stays there solid on its own. And then this one here is going to go into there, and that is also a very snug fit. I haven't drilled this one. Clearly I can't get a drill in there, but we'll put some glue on that one. And then this one here on the end is going to go into the top of that little reservoir there, and again I've drilled that one out so that stays there. And then this loom will come under those two main battery terminals that go in there. They're the ones that should be red. Okay, so they're going to go in there like that. This is going to go over here, and I think this loom actually sits up in the air because this here is straight down and it's designed to go into that slot. Now what I've done here on the end of this one, if you can see, I've cut the sides of it to narrow it to make it go in there easier. And then that one will go, it's going to play me up now because the camera's on, but that one will go into there. I can squeeze that in hopefully. Go on, go in. I've had it in there once, but it won't go in now because the camera's on. But there we go, we'll get that in a second. Let's just push that pin down in. I think that might help. Go on. Yeah, it will go in. I'll have to look at that. I've had it in there already. Basically, that's going to go in like that. And then this has to sit like this. This pin on here, if you remember, there's a mystery hole here in the chassis. And I think that's where that's going to go. So there we go. And that one's going to go, that's going to go like that. This is going to come over the top. That one's going to go into there like so. Just like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put it all in place and then come back and show you when it's done, because this is going on and on this video. You just don't want to be watching me fiddling around with that, do you? Okay, so there you go. So have a good look at that. I'll hold it here and then you can freeze frame. And if you're doing one of these yourself, you can have a look at how I've done it. And you can hopefully see from that what I've done. I'm not saying what I've done is right, it just looks right to me. But it's things like this that are confusing. When you look on here, you can see they've got the vertical pipe here and the horizontal pipe there are going over that pipe there. So this vertical pipe is this side of that one. So VO1 is this side of VO2 and it's above, VO1 is above 2. So it's this side and above VO2. When you look there, you can see the vertical pipe is that side and above VO2. So it's like, you know, which way do you do it? I've done it like that. So I've got it in behind. We'll see if I mean, I can't see any reason why it wouldn't fit. But if you were going to have it on that side, it would be very, very difficult to get that pipe to go around and into there. So maybe that's what's supposed to happen. Maybe, because that is quite long there, so maybe this is the beauty of drilling out these holes and not gluing them. Look, you can actually change your mind. So maybe that one goes around and into there like that. Now that makes sense now, doesn't it? But I have a feeling that that may foul on the chassis. But, there we go. So that's as per their drawing there. But it also looks like this pipe's supposed to lay down flatter, but I don't know. But that's how it goes. That's how I've got it anyway. So we'll see how it fits in the subframe. So that is step 18. VO1, VO2 are used. Step 18 is complete. So now we have K hashtag 18. So we need to work out now how we're going to fit all this together. So there's nothing that's telling us like 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. But it's obvious that if you put the differential in first, you're not going to be able to get that screw in there. If you put this in, nothing's going to affect the anti-roll bar. So we could put the anti-roll bar in last, I think, because the anti-roll bar is just sat there. Here's our anti-roll bar. And that's just sat there, that's going in between. So I can't see any reason why that would be in any way bothered by anything. I don't really want to fit this now because I don't want to be sitting around waiting for glue to dry. I'll tell you what, I'm going to fit it now and sit around waiting for glue to dry. What I've done, I've just put a drop, I'm not even sure you'll be able to see this because it's all black. I've just put a drop of glue, a large drop of glue at the inside of that hole there, the recess, and then a large drop on the inside face of the chassis. And then what we can do is position this into position. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to put this in actually, because that would be in the way of doing that. It may go in from the side. Now I want to make sure it's central because it actually floats around a bit, as you can see. So it's central. Okay, and it's sat down. It doesn't need to be clamped. It is sat on the glue. I can feel it kind of gelling. In case I hadn't already mentioned it, the glue I'm using is this Flexi 5K CA from a company called VMS. And this is the black thin. It's absolutely brilliant stuff. Okay, so we'll leave that to dry for a minute and then we'll come back and get on with the assembly. Alright, so that's dry. I've been going around with a cotton bud trying to remove my horrible greasy hand marks over everything. I guess we'll have to just give it a polish at the end. I've been and washed my hands again, but as soon as I touch the arms of the chair or something, because I got this cream on my elbows, you can see my elbows are all red and everything. So because I got the cream on them, the cream gets on the arm of the chair, I touch the arm of the chair and that's it, we're away. So yeah, it's bloody horrible stuff, it's like lard. Right, so looking at this build sequence, we've got the anti-roll bar in. Nothing's going to affect that thing because it just goes on the front. I don't think anything's going to affect this going in because it's all behind. So what I'd rather do is put this in now to get it out of the way. So this is going in. Oh, I've moved that pipe back behind. I didn't like the look of it going around like that, so I've moved it back behind. It felt like it was going to foul on the chassis. We'll have a look now anyway. Oh, I painted those cables red as well. That's Tamiya LP-50. So I think because they're not going to be flexing about, I think that might stay on there okay. So that's going to basically go into there and hook over the chassis like that. That's quite awkward, isn't it? It's not once you get a grip of it. There we go. So that's going into there. They've made one narrow and one wide, so you can't physically fit it the wrong way around. Making a meal of this, aren't I? Oh, I can see what's happening. Right, okay. That that shield there, that part R14 is getting in the way. So what we're going to have to do is make sure we get this side in first. Because it doesn't want to go in with that. That shield is going to scratch the chassis, I think. There we go. It's just getting that shield to go underneath the chassis just there, that's all. And as I said, I believe that pipe is going to go in through there and into that hole there. Right, so we've got 2 screws to hold this in place. That looks lovely, doesn't it? This is where it's worth all the work rather than just having black and silver plastic. So we've got 2 screws going in the side here, and it's 2 screws E. So E's are popular, aren't they, today? So get 2 E screws out. Okay, we've got the holes already tapped, if you remember. So just hold that down, put one in there. I can feel the paint. There's a lot of paint and lacquer on this subframe, so I can feel the paint. Put one in there. I'm glad they got this screwing in, not gluing in, because those pipes would keep pulling the super glue away. And also this piece is the main fulcrum for the steering. Cool, yeah, I can feel that paint in there. There we go. So that screw's nice and flush on the back. Let's push a load of paint out. So we'll do the same on this side. Push that one down in, get that screw in there. So that's going in like that. See the paint coming out the back. There we go. So that's that done. And as you can see, that pipe now would have fouled on the chassis if it had been round the back. So I think it's better to have it like that. Now this pipe here, this wire is going to go into that hole. It's going to have to be clamped down, so we'll do that at the end. But that's just going to go into that hole and sit like that. Okay, so we'll do that at the end, and what we'll do is we'll clamp it on there. Right, so now we've got that in. Now the next thing to do is put these shock absorbers in. So we've got, that's gone in, that's gone in. Yes, so the next thing to do now is put these shock absorbers in. And make sure you get these the right way round, because when you build it, you do it this way, you're looking at it. When you actually come to fit it on here, it stays this way around. That's not the front, it's this way. Okay? I wish I'd put these all in on the sides rather than on the tops, but never mind. So that's just going to sit in there like that. And then we've got an E screw going up underneath. Another E screw. Wow. Remember that thread's already tapped in that one as well. So we can pick this up, make sure we don't press on the anti-roll bar because the glue won't be cured on that yet. You can hear Jess outside barking her head off. There's another dog started barking in response, so they'll now have a conversation. And there's another one, so there's 3 of them at it now. There we go, so that's in like that. As you can see, that's why I tighten those screws up so they're not all flapping about and scratching everything. Now, I'm going to put this differential in before we do anything else. So that's just going to go into there, slot up into there, just like that. And then we have a H screw. H is a self-tapper, as you can see, because it's going into plastic. Remember we talked about the thread cutting and everything. And that's just going to go into there. He says. It kind of feels like it's going in, but it doesn't, if you know what I mean. There we go, that feels better. Blimey, that's tight going in there. It's still flopping around. Just hold the differential. That is really tight going in there. Oh, blimey. And it's still flopping around, so we'll just keep going. There we are. Okay, we want to make sure it's square, so I'm just looking straight down on top of it, and the shafts sort of line up with these two lugs on the sides. So we'll just hold it and give it a final to hold it in place. That's it. As long as it's held in place, that's fine. Okay, so you can see it's starting to look like a proper model. It's looking lovely, isn't it? Alright, we can touch all these holes up afterwards as well, if we want to or not. And then we have the springs and the shock absorbers. So SP-01 was the springs, if you remember, it was the longer ones. And then we've got our pieces here, and we need a B screw. We need 2 B screws. Alright, then the screws are going to go in. Remember, you keep it this way round, and this is what I was talking about, not having this prop shaft on it, so I'm just going to pop that out a minute. So this one will be that side, and the screw's going to come through from that way. So this has got to go over here, that's got to go over there, okay. I'm going to slacken these screws off now so I can move them around a bit. Okay, so that's going to go over there, that's going to go. You see the instructions are wrong here as well, because they're showing you here, they're showing the screw going through the subframe and then screwing into that arm. That's not correct. You can see here it's the other way around. So that shock absorber is going to go in there, and that arm is going to sit on that side. So we're going to have to compress that spring a bit. Oh no, we're okay, we just pivot it in more. So just screw that in there, and I can feel the paint. It's going to be our thread lock. So we'll go in till it just sits, and then back about 1/8 of a turn. And then this one here can go in till it just sits, and then back about 1/8 of a turn. And then it's all free. It's all free to move. As you can see, we have suspension. What I'm going to do here is just nip these back up, just to hold everything nice and firm. I'm not going to nip these up in the middle because they're actually pulling the shock absorbers over at an angle. So we're going to put that spring over there, grab our other shock absorber, put that one into there like so, just like that, and then we can grab this B screw and come through from behind into there like so. Again, I can feel that paint. I'm just going to nip these up just to keep it all nice and held while it's being built, so it's not all flopping around and knocking into everything. Okay, so you can see that shock absorber there working, and that one there working as well. Alright, so they will actually work with the screws just nipped up. I'm going to put some thread lock on eventually. I've got this thread lock here. This is the Tamiya one. Once I've got all the suspension together, I'll put thread lock on everything, I expect. And then finally for this part, we have this bracket here. And then we have 2 C screws holding this on. So 2 of these. 2 C screws. And then this bracket's going to go on in front. This is the crash bar, and it's going with the pins at the top and the threads at the bottom. So you've got a pin there and a pin there, and that's going to go into those holes just like that. Okay, and then we're going to grab a screw on the end of our screwdriver, and then just plonk that screw into that hole and tighten it up. I have a feeling these either we need to grind something off these screws or deepen the holes, because I don't think the holes are deep enough for these screws. We shall see. As you can see, it's got lots of play in it. Let's just see if we can do this. It's still running around. I've got a feeling the screw is bottoming out. What I could do is just grind a bit off the screw, or just take a little bit more out of the depth of the hole. Hard work this. Still not down. That's it. That's got it. So a little more nip on this one. Yeah, got it. Okay, so that's that in place. I'm just going to grab a Sharpie. That's a silver Sharpie. I want a black one. And where we've marked those screws, I'm just going to cover that in with a black Sharpie. There we are. What I would recommend actually on those is just grind a bit off the length of them. Because you can see the end of the screws. I don't know if you can see it close up. You can see the end of the screws in there. They are just slightly too long. Might be better off with a shorter screw if there is one. There isn't, I don't think. So yeah, just grind a bit off. It's still not, I can feel it just rattling slightly. So there we go. So we have completed, we'll just put our prop shaft back in. There we go, we have completed our front subframe for step 19. Alright, and next, in part 3, we're going to be doing all of this, and I think this is going to go together really quickly because there's no gluing, there's no painting. I don't think we're going to paint the steering column. All of this is all pre-painted, so yeah, and I'm probably going to do it out like this and then take it apart afterwards because what I was thinking, I want to paint the calipers. I haven't decided what colour I'm going to paint them yet. I also need to come up with a way of achieving the carbon look on the brakes. But the trouble is, if I do the front, I do like a custom colour on the calipers, like a gold over silver or something, it's going to be very difficult to match it when I do the back. So what I'm probably going to do is just build it like this, and then when we do the back, we're going to take these front uprights off, and then we'll build them up with the rear ones and paint them all at the same time. So there we go. So lots of work, long video, nearly an hour and a half long I think, isn't it? But I'll see if I can edit some of it out. But as you can see, bit of colour just sets it all off, doesn't it? You know, but when the body goes on, it's all going to be gone. So there we are. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you've got one of these, I hope you're going to build along with me. As I say, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some, I need to get some more super glue on here. I'll just show you what I'm going to do so I'm not leaving you in the lurch. I'm going to grab one of my modified pegs. Yeah, that'll go in there. Right, okay. So what I'm going to do is grab a drop of this super glue on here, on a Pringles lid. Okay, just like so. And then we can put some super glue in this hole. The trouble is the pin is much smaller than the hole. Okay, and then we can put that down in there and then grab this peg, clamp that cable to there like that, and then that super glue we can put some more around and just to fill that hole up. That super glue should all capillary in there and hold that in place. I'm just going to grab my cotton bud and remove any excess that's there. Okay, and what you could also do if you want to is put some, you can hold that in place like that and then just put a drop on the chassis rail on the outside edge. Cotton bud, take up the excess and then clamp it down. And that'll also help to hold it. Okay, so there you go, there's your wiring loom all done and all held in place. Right, thank you for watching again, and I'll see you all soon for part 3. Bye for now.